podcast number 45, our 2020 wrap-up, Tournament of Champions, best of the best, worst of the worst. Going to do a little bit of that too, and some notable exceptions of what we didn't actually talk about this year and why we didn't talk about that this year, which is a question I'm sure you've been asking yourself. The guy you're going to ask that to is not me, but actually my co-host here.
Oh, Brent. Nice. Wait, you didn't even introduce yourself yet.
Going in order of importance
Okay,
here.
yeah, Brent, Arcadia. Hey, I'll be talking about games shortly soon. Who are you? Who the fuck are you?
Andy, a.k.a. Solid Talker here, both of us leading you down an exciting, ESPN-style bracket of... what we do here is we talk about games. You know that. You've heard that before. But we've been putting them in a big list, and then we put them into a bracket for this episode, and we're going to talk about them, like you do with brackets during the Final Four and other times during the... Do people use brackets other than during March Madness? It's March now, which is great timing.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the fact that you attributed it to ESPN, like nobody had a tournament until, like, the 1980s.
In my mind, I'm thinking of, like, the, late 90s, early 2000s SportsCenter graphics for bracketology, and that, like, John Tesh style music and orchestral stings that they'd use and everything.
Oh god, yeah.
Like that's what it all is in my mind forever. Going forward for the next 30 years, all bracket conversations happen in that time frame with that context.
Yeah, to be fair, that's pretty much how I remember the 90s. A lot of sports betting and John Tesh. What'd you say?
Yeah, because John Tesh did the NBA on NBC theme.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's got a stupid name. It's called like B-Ball Roundup or something. It's got a really stupid name for John Tesh.
I'm definitely looking that up later.
Yo, you should. I think he also did the NCAA on CBS theme as well, which is another good one.
I'm sure that rolls off the tongue pretty well. So, what the hell is the Tournament of Champions or yearly roundup that we're doing today, Andy? Can you explain to the nice folks?
Yeah, well, we've been talking about games for the last year, and every time we talked about one, we kind of ranked it in our own personal lists. You had a list going, I had a list going. That's the end of the number of lists that we had, just the two, because there's two of us. And now we've gone and we've kind of interleaved them, we've mingled them together very gently, and made a little tournament of your top 8 and my top 8. And we're going to talk about them in that kind of bracket style matchup. See how they compare, see how they've aged since we last talked about them. Some of them we talked about very recently, others, due to the passage of time and it being a yearly thing, about a year ago was when we talked about them. And then we did the same thing for your bottom 8 and my bottom 8. And we're going to do the same thing, that same process of talking about it in a bracket style, but about those.
And about which one's the worst, not which one's the best of the worst. Which one's the worst of the worst.
Best of the bottom 8 is not an interesting thing to find out.
Exactly.
So worst of the bottom 8 each, yeah, that's something. And so we'll talk about that as well. But before we do that, people out there are probably wondering if they've kept, if they've been playing at home and taking good notes. What about all those games you didn't talk about? And
so it seems like most of the major ones ended up being exclusives this year. I'm going to point to Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. I, as the only PlayStation holder on this large breadth of characters on this podcast, I just never got around to them. In the middle of the pandemic, I didn't want to play Last of Us. I'm sure a lot of people understand.
That makes sense.
I'm very interested in the game. I thought Last of Us 1 was one of the best games ever made, and one day I'll get to it, but this year was not the year for me, so apologies to Last of Us 2 fans. Ghost of Tsushima, at the time just wasn't right, I guess. I missed that, original hype, and now I sort of want to play it on the PS5. I just never got around to it. And the big one of the year that people are probably going to notice immediately, just because it's still on everybody's minds, is Cyberpunk. I don't think it deserved recognition of any kind because of the way they treated players. I didn't want to amplify it. I really am enjoying the game, but I'm also playing on the a Series X. I know a lot of PC players are having a good experience, but I also know a lot of original previous gen owners are having a very, very bad experience and feel like they got absolutely swindled. So yeah, by just sort of ethics, I thought that I wouldn't cover it, because we're not a paid resource. We're not a proper review site that people come to. So, yeah, they need to patch the game, period. And then I'll give it a shout out one day, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think that's basically all the big ones, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good games came out last year. So I mean, I know a lot of people live and die by Game Off, but check out some other games.
Yeah, I mean, we also we missed stuff like we didn't really talk about Spelunky 2, which I know was a big one people were looking out for. Not just really my thing. I sucked really hard at Spelunky 1, so fuck Spelunky 2. Not gonna do that. We didn't play any of like Blaseball or Among Us as kind of the online darlings of the last year that created some interesting stuff. We didn't play that. You didn't play Half-Life Alyx, right?
No. I've pretty much given up on VR games.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
I just don't have the space for it.
A lot of stuff. And obviously Jackbox Party Pack number 7, just because a lot of the political nature of that, we decided to skip that one. Just didn't want to amplify those types of views any further than they already had been.
Really hot button issue, those Jackbox games.
All right, so what do you want to do? Want to kick it off with our tournament of shame here?
Tournament of shame, yeah.
Tournament?
We're gonna find the worst of the worst, and I mean, I guess it's really just the bottom half of our brackets. We probably still enjoyed most of these games, fair warning. So before we alienate everyone ever with this,
there's a couple of good games in here.
Yeah,
there's games that we enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's the problem with making a list of. Oh, that's the problem with ranking the games that you've played, is that there's necessarily something at the bottom, and it's not. We're not really grading on a curve. It's just which one's better than which one here. So
yeah, and I'll say that the worst games I played of the year I put down after like 30 minutes, and they were not talked about. Period. So there's plenty of worse games out there.
That's also a very good point. There's a number of games that I did not talk about at all, like Lily's Garden or the Tin Match 3 game on the Android phone.
You did.
Just didn't come up.
I missed that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of those lost episodes.
But yeah, let's jump right into it. Why don't we find out what the fuck the worst of the worst is?
Yeah, so our first here, we got number 1 seed, Captain Tsubasa, whatever the subtitle of that was, and Moving Out. Those were both of our, or that was my worst game, bottom ranked, and your number 11.
Yeah, what makes Captain Tsubasa the worst game of the year, if anything?
Captain Tsubasa was, if I'm remembering correctly, and I've tried to purge this from my mind so bad, the online multiplayer was horrible, and for a anime-based Tecmo Koei soccer game, very boring soccer that did not feel like you were doing any cool Muso shit or any Shaolin soccer type shit. It just kind of felt like an anime soccer game. Like a soccer game that you had to watch anime to play. So, and again, the online multiplayer was horseshit. It required online connectivity just to boot up and check to see if there were any new things for you to download. It's just a bad game.
Yeah, that sounds like rubbish.
What about Moving Out? Moving Out, your number 11.
Yeah, as like a janky physics game, that's charm sort of wears off pretty quickly. I like I said in the episode, one of the only ways I found to enjoy it was to turn on all of the accessibility options, or I think they referred to them as accessibility options. Basically, options that made it less janky and easier to play as single player. So, like by default, I think I would have had zero fun as a solo person playing this game. I think that's a pretty big hit against it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Out of these two games, though, I remember the way you were describing Captain Tsubasa, and it sounded like you were like a bit more angry with the experience of that game.
I really wanted a fun arcade soccer game, and it was neither fun nor arcade. It was arguably soccer, so it got 1 out of 3. But yeah, I think this is a game, because a lot of the reviews also talked about how broken it was.
Yeah.
How bad the online multiplayer was, how long it took to find matches, and how often those matches dropped. So I think that is an overall greater failure than Moving Out, which sounded kind of more just lackluster.
Yeah. I agree, and I've thought about going back and playing Moving Out a couple times, so I think that says a lot.
Okay, so we'll move Captain Tsubasa up to the next round.
Yeah. All right. Watch Dogs Legion versus Microsoft Flight Sim. I played Watch Dogs Legion, and I'm still so angry with this experience. I just went back and tried to play it again because I got it around the Series X launch. I really wanted to see it as sort of a showcase of the technical features, and it really is a beautiful game. Unfortunately, I really didn't enjoy much else outside of that, and recently I went back just to try and see if I could get back into it, because I had success doing that with the Watch Dogs 1 and 2, and I went and did one of the boxing tournaments, and it just immediately bugged out. Like, I won the tournament, and then I just was stuck there. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This game has been out for 6 months. And also the online features that I said in the episode that wouldn't 100% not be out in December, even though it said it when you launched the game in November. I was correct. They're still not out. So, fuck.
Really? They're still not out?
Yeah. Fuck you, Watch Dogs Legion. How about that?
That is fucking shocking. Wow.
So, Microsoft Flight Simulator?
Microsoft Flight Simulator, I have not gone back and touched it. I haven't thought of it since we talked about it, and I uninstalled it shortly after. It was a really cool technical thing that I just got no joy out of myself. There was nothing wrong with it, other than some slow load times and the fact that it took up an insane amount of space in your hard drive. But there was nothing that told me that it failed at what it set out to do. It just, I didn't want what it set out to do, I realized. So I was very happy that came to Game Pass for free, and I didn't have to pay for that, because I would have been very upset.
Yeah.
I would say that in no way is worse than Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. It just sounds like that game wasn't for you. I think a lot of people are enjoying it.
That's it. Just wasn't for me. Great reviews from nearly everyone else.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Totally Reliable Delivery Service and Super Hot Mind Control Delete.
It's hard to get that riled up about Totally Reliable Delivery Service. In similar vein to Moving Out, like, it's just a janky physics game. Like, it's definitely not for me, but I also didn't think it was very fun, very big, any of the quests very interesting. I will definitely never play this game again. Super Hot, tell us about that.
Super Hot is one of the ones that ends up on this list, I think, just because of how long the list is, and it's not being a normally distributed list of good and bad games. Super Hot Mind Control, I'm not going to get back into it anytime soon. I may never play it again, but it was fun, and I had a good time with it. I don't regret the time I spent with it, and I think that they did a lot of interesting stuff to take the Super Hot formula and expand it out. I still feel that way. So I think that's just a generally good game that ended up on this list due to circumstances outside of our control. So I don't think Super Hot should move on. Right. I think Reliable Delivery Service should instead.
Right there with you. Elderborn and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Tell us about, or pitch us on Elderborn. Why is that the greatest game of the year?
Oh God, Elderborn. It's a game that I remember playing a lot of, and every time we do this, I see it on the list, and I think, oh shit, Elderborn. God, I haven't thought about that game since the beginning of the year and the last time we recorded.
Yep. Every time we bring it up.
Elderborn was a fun first-person combat game that is just so forgettable. It is like Bazooka Joe Gum, and thankfully it was priced like Bazooka Joe Gum, so it wasn't really that much of an issue. But yeah, it's a fantastic deal I got on it.
Fair enough.
No, I think it was like $15-20 at the time, which is cheap for PC games.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fine, but it's also completely forgettable. I don't remember it doing anything really of note. It's just kind of there. It's just there. Yeah. It's a Wendy's burger.
Well, I think
I got nothing against it.
yeah. I'm gonna say I still want it to go forward just because Final Fantasy VII, and I'll give it. So the Final Fantasy VII remake episode, I think I torched this game, and honestly, like I played it all the way to the end. I did enjoy moments of it. I mean, I spent like 60, 70 hours in this world. Was it what I wanted or needed or expected? No, it wasn't. But I think it's better than flavorless gum.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we'll move Elderborn on to the next round. Up next, we got Bleeding Edge and Streets of Rage 4. Tell us about Bleeding Edge.
Oh, I forgot about this. This game is selling for like $3 at Best Buy right now. Nothing about this game really worked. I was so bored of it after 5 matches. I was frustrated with it. It just felt like I would walk for like 5 minutes at a time to get to any objectives or try and get into a fight, and then I would die in 2 seconds for reasons unknown. Even though I would play like tankier classes so I could learn the game. It was just an ill-conceived melee arena game, but like with the same arena sizes of like an Overwatch game where you're actually moving around really quickly and getting in high-octane combat. In this, you would just find where people were and just slap each other silly for fucking 30 seconds at a time, and then you'd have to run back. It was... Yeah, the game simply shouldn't have come out if they wanted to release a melee combat arena game. I think there's a space for it, but this is maybe one of the worst examples of it I've ever played or conceptualized. Streets of Rage 4?
Streets of Rage 4 was a good game that I had a lot of fun with that, again, just ended up in this list because I played more good games than bad games this year.
All right, Bleeding Edge, congratulations. Doom Eternal and Ghost Runner?
By default. Doom Eternal was a bad game, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
Ooh,
I don't think it was good. It is, and I stand by this. I don't think it's a good Doom game. I think it's a perfectly fine first-person shooter that if that's what you want, but I don't think it evolved the mechanics of the 2016 Doom in a way that makes it still feel like Doom. This feels like it makes it feel more like really violent Dishonored or something, or first-person Prince of Persia with guns. Like it, everything they added that wasn't pointing and shooting at things felt superfluous and pointless. Doom 2016 was a tight package, and this is just gold leaf on a hamburger. It's stupid. Not fun.
That's a good way.
What about Ghost Runner?
Ghost Runner, I was frustrated with it. I think there's a lot of weird design choices, but for what it was, I can kind of respect it. I did basically baby rage in the game out of frustration with it, and it wasn't because like the game was LOL too hard. It was because it was like just janky, and I'd run at the wall and I just wouldn't like run on it and shit like that. So it was like very frustrating, but like there was a vision there. It was a good effort. It just wasn't perfect. So I think I'm with you on Doom Eternal maybe being a greater disappointment.
Yeah, and I know that I am one of like 6 people who feel this way. So
yeah, well,
soundtrack was good though. What do we got here? We got Animal Crossing and Minecraft Dungeons. I went back and re-listened to our Animal Crossing episode where we talked about that, and I regret that I didn't quite get across how much I hated that game. Because I tried to be very metered and tried not to just rant for 30 minutes, and I didn't get it across the way that I should have. And Animal Crossing is a really difficult one, because if you were gonna ask me what game summarized what is the game of 2020, more than like the best game or the most innovative game, just like what is the game that it's Animal Crossing. It's 100% Animal Crossing. That was everywhere. It's what people were playing. It's what people got into, bought Switches to play. It was the game on nearly every facet of talking about games, both within the games industry and just in general pop culture. Animal Crossing was fucking everywhere. And it was the perfect game to come out during a pandemic. It's a bad game and no one should play it. And I think it fails in so many ways that no one would accept if anyone other than Nintendo made it. If Ubisoft or EA made this game, people would do nothing but shit on it.
Well, Minecraft Dungeons was pretty good, actually. It's kind of unfortunate it's on this list. So if you have any extra thoughts, we can send Animal Crossing to the next round, because it's clearly worse than Minecraft Dungeons.
God, I hate Animal Crossing so much.
All right.
Now, tell me about Drake Hollow, because that's up against Genshin Impact.
Oh, what an ill-conceived, weird little game that was, like, almost fun for a few minutes, and then it just, like... I don't even know where to begin with this one. Like, I definitely didn't play it long enough to get riled up too much about it, because it was so, like, uninteresting. But, yeah, the base building was boring, the exploration was boring, it was kind of procedural, which, like, you know, procedural plus base building is definitely, like, it begs the question, what's the point? Like, why am I building a temporary base just to... Like, it was one of the... What was that side-scrolling game where you're on the horse? They made a couple of them. It kind of
Kingdom?
Yeah, Kingdom. It kind of reminded me of that, but Kingdom was like a much better game, because it was like, oh, I can see why we're moving on here. I understand it. Drake Hollow is just the dumbest version of that. Genshin Impact?
Genshin Impact is such an interesting game technically, and just if I was gonna show if I wanted to go back 20 years and show teenage Andy, like, look at what games are. Genshin Impact is what I would bring, and I would show it to him on my phone. Like, that experience blew my mind. The fact that I was playing an online game that was playing this buttery smooth on my fucking LG phone just blew my mind. It's a fine game. It's like, it's boring. It's weird MMO mobile Breath of the Wild with a horrible story that I could not care less about. But technically, I was very impressed with it.
Sounds like there's some redeeming qualities to it.
Yeah, so Drake Hollow?
Yeah, Drake Hollow.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're too good. Get out of here.
Let's move back up towards the top. We've now got Captain Tsubasa and Watchdog Legion. Make your case for Watchdog Legion here.
Well, this is an interesting one. I think my entire case is that while Captain Tsubasa had shitty online features, Watchdog Legion still doesn't have fucking online features. They were promised a month after release. 6 months later. The game released in the middle of the pandemic. You can't just make the fucking pandemic your excuse. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I can't argue that. Captain Tsubasa sucks, but Watchdog Legions had everything more going for it.
Yeah, the core gameplay of Watchdog Legion is probably, like, equally uninspired to Captain Tsubasa's otherwise, I would say.
All right, Watchdog Legions, moving on up. Totally reliable delivery service in Elderborn. I feel like this is the matchup. This right here is the one that makes it for me.
The championship match coming too soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you could pay me to play a totally reliable delivery service again.
I think that may be the difference, where if you offered to pay me for it, I might forget that you did. I might just forget the offer entirely, because it's that fleeting of a memory. It is like a fart in the wind.
Yeah, you know what?
It's just gone.
That may say more, because Elderborn has been the butt of a lot of jokes this year about just what you played. What is that game? Like, I don't remember talking about it at all with you.
Yeah. All right, moving Elderborn on. Actually, you know what? Here, this might be it as well. Bleeding Edge and Doom Eternal.
Oh Lord, yeah. I'm gonna die on this hill. I think Bleeding Edge. My God, like, they try? I mean, it's like it came from a good studio. It's the most confusing game that I think I've ever played. It's just like, you guys know how to make games. Why did you think this was fun? Like, what? Like, Papa Microsoft make you put this out? Like, I don't understand.
I think this is gonna be my thing here, because Doom Eternal, unlike you're with Bleeding Edge, where you are not alone in thinking Bleeding Edge was hot garbage. As you said, it's $3 at Best Buy. Doom Eternal is still lauded by everyone. Everyone loves this game except me. And I would argue that this game had much further to fall than Bleeding Edge did, and had a company of equal pedigree behind it. But I would be the only one saying this. This is me standing outside Five Guys saying, I don't think these burgers are actually that great. And everyone looking at me like, what are you talking about? Look at how many people are in Five Guys.
Look at how many
Everyone's
fries
like,
they give you.
I'm like, oh no, I got the fries. I love the fry. I love Doom Eternal soundtrack. Great soundtrack. These burgers don't have a lot of flavor, is my point.
Also,
there are more flavorful burgers out there.
Also, what's the best one? Tell me how to make the best Five Guys burger. I'm not a chef.
Please, just give me a number I can order, a name on a board. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, why do I have to read you like my fucking manifesto here?
And instead, I just look like some weird hobo standing outside a burger joint who's shouting because he can't afford the food inside. So I think this ultimately goes to Bleeding Edge, as I cannot fight this battle on my own. This is not a battle I can win on my own, so I think that just has to go to you.
Yeah, maybe that is what it is. I haven't played Doom Eternal. I'm still really interested in playing it. I don't know if that has any bearing, even despite what you've said. So, yeah, I guess I'm with you.
Okay, we've got Animal Crossing and Drake Hollow. Again, I think I'm just kind of in the minority here. I want people to hold Nintendo to a higher standard, to make better Pokemon games, to make better Animal Crossing games, to just make better games in general. They can. They're capable of doing it, and when they do, it's incredible, and they're very talented, but then sometimes they just fucking phone it in, and everyone gives them a pass. And everyone gave them a pass for Animal Crossing except me and like a couple of people bitching on the Animal Crossing subreddit. Who were just saying like, "Oh, why are you even here if you're going to complain about it?"
Because I want to love it.
All right, then.
I want to talk about it.
I want to be like you. Show me how to be like you.
Indoctrinate me, please. Yeah, I think with this matchup, you can draw a lot of comparisons between the two games because like Drake Hollow is like all of its base building is so half-assed. All the exploration and the collecting, like there's only one way to collect things in the game. Like I guess it's just not substantial at all. I think if you couldn't compare the two directly as we can, yeah, I hear your furor and rage, but it's such a bad, it's like the worst possible version of Animal Crossing. Like if this was an Animal Crossing game, then I think everyone would actually hate it. Like the
Drake Hollow it is.
First 3D Animal Crossing game.
All right, we got now Watchdog Legion and Elderborn. I'm still laughing. I'm looking at it, and I'm laughing that Elderborn is still in this tournament. That alone is making me laugh. So I think that just gives it to Watchdog Legions overall. Like I can't come up with an argument. It's so it's nothing. It's nothing.
I think I'm definitely like extra irritated with Watch Dogs Legion just because it's such a step back for the franchise. But it is definitely on the straight up bad side of games. I don't know, Elderborn being forgettable versus Elderborn being a bad game. Where do you fall on that side of things?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just forgettable in every possible way. So I say Watchdog Legions moving into the final match here against the winner of Bleeding Edge and Drake Hollow. So this is going to be you. It's time for you to start monologuing.
That's really interesting. Where do I start? These games are both kind of shite. Bleeding Edge, I will never play again. Never, ever, 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 ever again. Drake Hollow, if they patched it a lot, I would play it again. I think I would. I would try it again. I'd see what sort of improvements they would make. It still like had potential. It was just so like such a cockamamie design. That's the only way I can think to compare these two. This is a real true bottom barrel showcase here. These two, that may have well been the championship game if they were in different sides of the bracket. Yeah, I'd say Bleeding Edge moves on.
So we've got Bleeding Edge and Watchdog Legion shaping up to decide who is the worst of the worst.
Bleeding Edge only had an online component, right?
Right.
To
my knowledge.
I wish it didn't have an online component like Watch Dogs Legion. so that it just wasn't a game at all. That's gonna be my logic. I'm sticking to it.
So the loser is Bleeding Edge then? Am I reading that right?
I don't think there's any way around it. I'm trying to monologue myself here. I'm quivering with rage at the thought of playing Bleeding Edge again. Watch Dogs Legion, I probably will still boot up a couple more times just to infuriate myself. And then the cycle will continue. Yeah, Bleeding Edge is definitely the worst game of the year.
Bleeding Edge, worst game of the year. Let's take a moment and think about the fact that people are still talking about Bleeding Edge in 2021.
You're welcome.
Someone's out there still talking about it.
We're the only pair that's still amplifying this game, and I don't know if we're amplifying it for the right reasons.
Now, let's move on to something a bit more positive, huh?
Oh, fucking please. I'm not sure I even like video games anymore. What are we doing here?
First matchup for our best of the best. We've got Yakuza Like a Dragon and Deep Rock Galactic. That's our number 16 matchup. Make your case.
I absolutely love Yakuza. I am like a schoolgirl over here. Yakuza has reignited a love for JRPGs that was long since lain dormant. Almost immediately after I finished 100%ing it and beating the final dungeon, which required me to grind up like everybody's class to 99 several times. I wrapped that up, and then I immediately started playing another JRPG because I was so enamored with Yakuza that I was just like, I'm not done. I put in over 100 hours into Yakuza, and then I segued directly into Dragon Quest XI, which I also love. Side note for very different reasons, but it has definitely awakened something in me. I'm a better person because of it. I've realized what it means to be a man, Andy. How do you feel about Deep Rock Galactic?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I it's one of those games that I come to every once in a while when a buddy of mine and I are looking for something co-op to play. It's like, let's see what they've done with Deep Rock Galactic. And we play it for like 3 days and then, that's cool. And then, bail off of it for a while. And that's a cycle that's been going on since we bought it in early access a couple years ago. I can't really say that it's awakened anything inside me, even when it was brand new and I was just learning about it. It's fine. I don't think it beats out your Yakuza Like a Dragon, though.
It's not making you a better man, Andy.
Nah, it's it might have some issues with it. I've got some complaints I'd issue, and there's just some general ideas on how lighting and everything works that I just kind of wish I could cheat away from. So yeah, I don't think it's made me a better anything.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm clearly on board with this. I'm not gonna say anything.
All right, next up we got Hades and Star Renegades. I know that I didn't rank Hades as high as other people did, what with it winning like every game of the year ever. I think people retroactively gave it last year's game of the year because they just loved it so fucking much. I have nothing against Hades. I think it's really fun. It just never hit me quite as hard as everyone else. And I feel like I missed out on something actually. Like I put probably 20, 25 hours into it, but it never was like that I've got to play one more round or I got to sneak in a round before I do anything else today. Like it's fine. It's a real good game. Real good game. It's the first super massive or super giant? Super
massive, yeah.
Yeah, and I know that this caused some consternation for you when I said it originally that it was the first supermassive game that I actually enjoyed.
Maybe your standards are just too high.
Maybe, yes, that's 100% it. My standards are too high. Person whose top-ranked game of the year is XCOM Chimera Squad. That no one's talking about. And I don't think anyone was talking about it when we talked about it shortly after it was released.
How did Elderborn get into the upper bracket?
So, yeah, it's Hades is good. It's a really good game. It's a solid B+ from me. What about Star Renegades?
Star Renegades, this is actually going to be a hard one because I think I feel the exact same way about Star Renegades. It's a very good game. As soon as I beat it the first time, I felt no reason to ever play it again. I saw they released DLC. I was kind of curious about it. I booted it up, and then as soon as I was in the open world, the overworld, I was like, I don't want to play this again. But like even one playthrough takes a while. Like so I probably put 10 hours into it, maybe a little more. Really enjoyed that one playthrough, but I don't know. It wasn't the roguelike that I wanted it to be. Like it's a roguelike up until you sort of finish that first playthrough, and then it just doesn't iterate on itself creatively at all. From what I've heard, Hades probably does a better job of that.
Yeah, I think it does, and I have occasionally gone back and played more Hades.
Yeah,
like it's not something I've really like been champing at the bit to do, but you know, it's like Burger King.
Yeah.
Like I don't love Burger King, but Burger King's fine.
Yeah.
Occasionally I get an urge for like their original chicken sandwich or something. So I would say my push would be for Hades to move forward, because it sounds like I have a non-zero amount of enthusiasm for it, and you have zero.
Yeah. I remember coming off the game and like really being like high on it, and then it just like continued to just plummet like a GameStop stock. Just wouldn't stop. JK, by the time this comes out, it'll be up again. I don't know shit about stocks.
Yeah, I haven't checked it in a while, but I'm sure we're both broke.
I don't like being poor, Andy.
So, third matchup here, we got Murder by Numbers and Deliver Us the Moon. Murder by Numbers is something that I still feel really strongly about as a game that I'm glad exists. It's a hard one to recommend to people because it is an intersection of two very specific types of games that I know like two people who play. And of the three people I recommended it to, one person said that there was too much Picross and they just wanted to do the story. And the other person said there was too much story and they just wanted to do Picross. So I can't really like say that. Like I thought it was really nice balance. And the third person that I had recommended it to also enjoyed it. So,
so there is a second Andy out there, because this
There
game
is a
was
second
definitely
Andy out
made
there.
for you.
yeah, it was made for me. The only thing it's missing is some sort of weird hentai component to just make it the perfect game. But you know, that's fine. It's fine.
We can make this happen.
Yeah, we can. I'm sure hentai Picross exists out there.
You're-
I don't know if it also is a Phoenix Wright game, but
I mean, you're like
I'm
literally
really-
filling in squares, so why not reveal the squares every time?
oh, it's so easy. Why didn't they think of it?
They probably did. They
'Cause-
just wanted to sell
Because
games.
they're not perverts. Yeah, they wanted to sell games.
They're
I
not.
think Murder by Numbers is a really good game that would really appeal to a very small amount of people. And actually, as I've demonstrated with science, half of the amount of people that I thought it would. So, how was Deliver Us the Moon?
Yeah, you know, I'll run with your thought process here. Deliver Us the Moon only appeals to one type of person, the person that really likes narrative games. There's technically combat in it, but it's really not. It exists in that you have to kill a few enemies, but it's not like, you know, swinging a sword combat. It's like, I think you have to shock them or something. So you're really getting into this for the narrative experience. I remember the game being surprisingly beautiful, although I remember there being like frame rate issues. But I think it was built on Unreal 4. So it's like a good looking space game with a decent narrative. You're going to see some of the twists coming. But, you know, overall, enjoyable. Nothing I would ever recommend to anyone, though. So I guess that probably also says a lot, too. I probably just don't know a single person that would enjoy that game. Which is unfortunate, because it's not bad.
So, I don't know. This is a tough one. Do you feel strongly one way or the other? Do you feel strongly like Deliver Us the Moon is a better game?
No, I think Murder by Numbers should move on, to be very clear.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, Murder by Numbers. Moving on. So we got Gears Tactics and Immortals Phoenix Rising. Tell me about Gears Tactics. I don't really remember much about that one.
Yeah, I was surprised with Gears Tactics in that it was more than met the eye. It was surprisingly substantial tactics game. It fit really well in the Gears universe. It was fun to play with, like, you know, the chainsaw guns where you just run up to enemies and chop them in half, and doing that in a tactical fashion is like my wet dream. Long term though, I don't think there was like that much substance, or I should say there wasn't that much content to the game. You sort of are doing the same thing over and over again. It's pretty standard fare as far as a tactics game goes. While I was really impressed, obviously, with like how they really ingrained this sort of game in the Gears universe, I think if it was just a quirky startup tactics game, I would have been bored of it pretty quickly. I think there's a certain satisfying element to the game that exists, but I think it was just sort of your run-of-the-mill tactics game. And even Other Side, which I think must have fallen right in between both lists because it didn't make an appearance in the lower bracket. I think even like Lower Side is a more substantial tactics game, despite being much more frustrating.
Other Side was your number 9. So yeah, it was right between the two lists. We each had 2 games that didn't make it onto the list. So yeah, I guess we'll just quickly point out your 9 and 10 were Other Side and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and mine were Hot Shot Racing and Fall Guys, which I think are 2 very mediocre games.
Right in the middle, some Mac Daverino.
Immortals Phoenix Rising is a game that I forgot that I played.
We just talked about it.
Talk about that. We just talked about that less than a month ago. I have not thought about it since then. I meant to go play more of it, and I fucking forgot. I've been playing Payday 2 instead. Payday 2, that game's like 30 years old and was canceled by gamers like 8 different times for 8 different reasons. So
hashtag uncanceled.
Hashtag uncancel Payday 2, please. We need to get that community back going again. Immortals, I guess I have it written in here as Fenton's Sacrifice.
Yeah, I had to update that for the bracket.
Immortals Fenton's Sacrifice is it was like a solid B. It's like a higher quality Elderborn. Like, it's fine. Everything it does is fine. Except the story, which I didn't care about at all. But it's not anything that I thought that I might go back to it. Clearly I didn't. So I think Gears Tactics moves ahead, because I remembered you talking about Gears Tactics more than I remembered talking about Immortals Phoenix Rising, and it's a difference of like almost a year.
Yeah,
we talked about
it last April,
last May, and I remember that conversation more than the one that we had literally 2 weeks ago. So. My God. Gears Tactics.
I can't defend Morton Joe's Penis Rising, so go for it.
XCOM Chimera Squad was shockingly my number 1 game of the year. And it's another one that I kind of forgot that I played.
What's it up against? Before I forget.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. It's up against Carrion. Your number 8 of the year. Because that's how brackets work. Chimera Squad's an interesting one to think about, because I don't think anyone played it then. No one is talking about it now. No one is 100% going to be talking about it in a year or two's time. Like, it's like Far Cry 2. Like, no one talks about Far Cry 2 except me. No one talks about Chimera Squad except me, apparently. It was a lot of fun for a very short period of time. I have nothing but fond memories of it. There was a snake woman in it that I thought was the greatest thing to happen in video games in a long time. Just the tactics and dealing with her.
Was it because it was a hentai character?
There wasn't even like really cool, sexy lizard tits to look at or anything like that. Whoa. It was just that the tactics for her being able to pull people to different parts of the board, and that I remember being the idea that you could pull people different parts of the board, you could pull people out of enemy fire, but also pull people through Overwatch fire, which is like if someone crosses through this, people will fire instinctively. And so being able to pull people through that, being able to pull people in front of you to shield you from enemy fire, was just like, all of that was an amazingly interesting tactical puzzle that one character gave you. It was far more interesting than so much of the rest of the game. But I still think about that tactical puzzle, and that I hope someone will take that and build onto that into like that being its own tactics game, that kind of pulling you and pushing you across the board as part of a tactics battler. because that was really cool. And like Disgaea has that a little bit with the throwing people. That is Disgaea, right? That I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I think the Prinnies can do some throwing or something, and maybe some of the odd characters.
Yeah, and so like that becomes part of like, oh, you can pick up a guy and chuck him there, and that can do damage.
Yeah.
But this was just really pulling that into a whole other world of being able to manipulate your own people and other people into danger, out of danger, through like really cool stuff. So that, yeah, I loved that game. Now that I remember that I played it.
I was gonna say you remember a lot more than I thought you would have.
Once I got going, I remembered it. But it was, you know, like I had to get there. I had to get that momentum.
Comparing it to Carrion, you know, I think I probably enjoyed it more immediately after, and I wasn't even that high on it then. As it's just stated, the things that I remember were sort of like the uninteresting exploration, some of the weird movements, the fact that enemies didn't respawn, so like once you did a zone you were just done, and when you had to like go and re-explore it to find some item that you couldn't get through to before, you just sort of slid through past everything. It felt more like a chore than it did a gameplay mechanic. It's the absolute most run-of-the-mill Metroidvania game you could ever imagine, even though the concept is very interesting. You're playing this big blob that gets bigger and eats people and is murdering people in this like underground military silo. But yeah, it just seemed like the gameplay was just sort of uninspired. It was much more inspired by concept choices than anything. So yeah, I'd say you still sound passionate about Chimera Squad, despite nobody talking about it anymore.
Yeah, Chimera Squad is kind of like being reminded of a girl you had a crush on in high school. Like suddenly it all comes flooding back, like, oh my god, yeah. And when she in volleyball, like you hadn't thought about her in 20 years, but now the second that someone mentions her name, it all just comes flooding back to you.
Oh, Daisy, I remember.
Tell me about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot up against Monster Train.
Oh, this is a weird one, because since we've recorded this episode, I've played Monster Train, and I played Monster Train a lot, and then I played Monster Train a lot more. So, fair warning, this is going to be a conflicted one for me.
Do you want to just take both of these?
No. But Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, I was surprised at how good it was. When the game first announced, it just looked like another absolutely undoable like anime property adaptation. I never had any hope for it. My expectations were nearly zero. I actually really enjoyed this game. It was a lot of fun. The exploration was substantial in some regards. You can fly around a lot. It feels really good. The aerial combat was surprisingly good. It was really a substantial game. I've never played an anime adaptation quite like it. I may never play it again, or play a game like it again. Probably won't play it again. I did 100% it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Monster Train.
Monster Train is such an interesting game because it wears its inspirations like, not even like on their sleeve, like literally a t-shirt that says, we wanted to make Slay the Spire. But it elevated it with just doing obvious things and doing weird shit, and in extremely inelegant ways. Like there's so much of the conceit of Monster Train, that the core around it is weird and janky and kind of forced together, but it all works so well. It is so much better than it has any right to be for a game that it feels so much just like a couple of kids saying, oh my god, what if Slay the Spire had this? Oh my god, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this? Oh my god, we could make that game. Like, that's what it feels so much like. And so many of the things in that game are just like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that. We're just like, instead of that, like you go left or right and you just pick the thing. It's either left or right. We're not doing a whole map. I don't know how to make that map. So just go left or right. That's what it's going to be. Like it has those moments where it almost feels like they just threw it in there because they didn't know how to do it the way that Slay the Spire does. not to denigrate them, because they're very talented what they did, but it just has those kind of moments. But it's so good. It's so much fun, and it stands on its own away from Slay the Spire really well as like its own game. It deserves to exist. It can exist. It's not just something to play when you need a break from Slay the Spire. It is its own game in every right.
Yeah,
but there's also something that could be said the fact that like everything I've just said was just talking about Slay the Spire in a lot of ways.
Well, we are in a
Slay the Spire is
post-Slay the
also
Spire world.
Yeah, then we are. It's you can't escape it when you're playing a game, when you're playing a deck building game on PC or on a console. You're gonna get comparisons to Slay the Spire. That's just the way it is now. I think Monster Train's fantastic. I think it's gonna stick around for a while. I do not think it is a flash in the pan the way that some people thought it was when it first came out and a lot of people were streaming it.
Yeah. I'm constantly amazed by like you said, you go into it and it all seems sloppy, and then you play a ton of it and you're like, oh, I see exactly why they did that, or oh, this makes sense now now that I've played this enough. So it's a truly remarkable game, and not just remarkable in a vacuum that like Dragon Ball Z is in, which is a lack of any real good anime games. So I think I agree with you that or maybe I don't. I think Monster Train is the better game personally. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I do as well. I think Monster Train is something that is going to be that will continue to stand on its own, and in 10 years' time will be pointed at like it pointed at the way people point at like Saints Row, at the way that it was able to distinguish itself from a lot of other GTA clones that were just like games that no one talks about anymore, like True Crime Streets of LA or State of Emergency. Like Saints Row was able to find its own thing, and even though it felt janky at times, it was its own entity. Yeah. Monster Train is going to be that, and I would not be surprised if we get a sequel to Monster Train, and if Monster Train and Slay the Spire just continue to coexist.
Yeah, that'd be great. I want a Monster Train 2 right now. What are we doing? Let's make that. This is also worth noting our first upset so far of the upper bracket.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Dragon Ball Z came in at the 7 seed, and Monster Train's at the 10. Not a huge upset, but it's happening.
That is the benefit of getting in earlier or getting in later in the year.
Yeah, getting that Oscar push in Monster Train.
Yeah, exactly. So now we've got what do we got? We got Desperados 3 and Paper Mario: The Origami King.
Desperado 3 is still a great game. I regret every day that I don't go back and do the last couple missions, because it's a really good game. It's a really traditional Western narrative that's really fun. The gameplay is really satisfying. It's clearly incredibly well designed. Like there's every inch of every placement of every object and every single NPC was placed with such care and consideration. It's unbelievable. That being said, game's certainly not for everyone. It's essentially a stealth top-down, isometric game. So I can see how watching a trailer may not be super appealing to most. It wasn't super appealing to me when I watched the trailer, but it came along with a free demo. Thank God I tried it. I've been in love with it ever since. Paper Mario?
Paper Mario Origami King is simultaneously one of the best and worst Paper Mario games. I like the Paper Mario series a lot. The world they created, the exploration of it, all of the things folded paper. I love how much Nintendo has embraced their characters in worlds populated by physical objects. That things like Yoshi's Woolly World, Yoshi's Crafted World, this Paper Mario, like everything is being built in a way where it feels like it's a miniature, it's a diorama, and it's awesome that they're doing that. It works so well for the style of their games. But the combat system in Paper Mario, The Origami King, is farts, and I don't like it. And it is the reason I stopped playing it, because I just got no joy from doing those combat puzzles, and I just had to move on to something else. So it doesn't deserve to go forward.
Well, simple enough.
Simple enough, yeah.
I am still incensed that they changed the battle system that much. Still. And I will never play that game. I'm so angry.
It would have been great. It would have been a lot of fun if they had used just the standard Paper Mario battle system. But they just had no interest in doing that. Nintendo had to be weird again and couldn't just make a game. Just make a game like you did before, but with slight improvements. Just iterate on a thing you already had for once.
No.
No, we're going to just invent it from scratch again. or we're going to do exactly what we did before and not iterate on it at all, including all the stuff that was shit and outdated 10 years ago. Animal Crossing.
Yeah, whoa! Shots from the dark.
So, last we got Crusader Kings and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I really loved Crusader Kings. It was, one of my top 3 games of the year. It's so good. Everything about that, the way that the interface just tells you everything you need to know and makes it so easy to dive into every aspect, every little lever that's being pulled, everything that's being set in the game that causes things to run a certain way, made me feel really good about why things were happening the way they did, which is so important in strategy games. Yeah. You have to feel like you understand why the enemies are making decisions that they are and why people are reacting to you the way they are, why things are succeeding, why things are failing. And Crusader Kings did that so well. It's rare that I find a game that I want to keep playing the situations that I'm guaranteed to lose, because it's so much more, it's so interesting to try and do better, even though I know I'm going to lose. Just like to keep fiddling with those and seeing, well, maybe there was a way to get a little closer to success. I know I'm never going to get there, but how far could I have gotten?
Yeah.
What about Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Well, I'm pretty bored of that game. keep meaning to go back and finish it up, but I just can't compel myself to for some reason. I booted it up like 3 times lately. Just looked around in the world and be like, wow, it's so pretty. And then I look at what I have to do, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then I'll boot something else up. I've played a bit of Crusader Kings 3 as well, so I'm just going to save myself the breath and say Crusader Kings 3 should move on.
All right, sounds good. All right, now we are on to our final 4 here.
Nope.
That's not how that works.
Simply incorrect, Andy.
It's just for our set of 4 matchups with 8 total games.
Sick recovery.
Yeah, no one's gonna get that.
Elite 8 in NCAA terms.
Yes. Now we're moving on to our Elite 8. Dietrich, if you could edit that to make me sound smarter, that'd be great.
No.
We've got Yakuza Like a Dragon and Hades. This is a tough one. Except I think it should go to Yakuza Like a Dragon. I think that's pretty obvious. Just because you have such enthusiasm for that, and I've got like fair to middling levels of enthusiasm for Hades.
Yeah.
Like a birthday party Mylar balloon a couple weeks after the party. Like it's still floating, but it's
just don't have the heart to, stick it with a fork.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, if I was gonna add anything, I've single-handedly promoted this game to half of the United States, I'm pretty sure at this point. So I'm quite bullish on this game. So I think I probably agree, but I've also heard Hades is straight up the game of the year. So I mean, if you can find a way to argue it, I'm all ears.
I'm happy to tell you what other people have said, but it's not what I said, and I don't think that that's fair.
Fair enough.
I don't think that's fair to tell you that's a good thing when I just don't agree.
You're right.
I don't agree.
Okay, so it goes. Yakuza onwards to the final 4, the actual final 4.
Yes, yeah, not that fake final 4 that I psyched you guys all out with. Fucking sick prank.
Got him.
Murder by Numbers and Gears Tactics. I think in this situation, Murder by Numbers ends up being kind of like one of those ramen burgers. Remember when those were a big thing a couple years ago?
Yeah, I still haven't tried one. They look kind of good, I think.
Yeah, and that's that kind of thing like people are going to look at it and be like, yeah, maybe that could be fun, but it's only going to appeal to like to 1% of people who actually eat a ramen burger and say, yeah, I want to eat more of this. I want to eat this again. Whereas I feel like Gears Tactics probably has a bit more of a wider appeal.
That's an interesting thing. I think I've only recommended to people in the what's the phrase I'm looking for? With the notion that they probably will only like it if they like Gears. So that's like an extra layer that they have to enjoy. I was like, would you recommend Murder by Numbers to someone who doesn't necessarily? I think you have. Doesn't necessarily like Picross or narrative-based games.
I thought the people that I was recommending this game to liked both of those things.
Yeah.
So it just didn't hit them the right way. If you did not like Picross games, I would say that this game is the opposite of what you should buy. Because it has two things. It has solving a crime through narrative Phoenix Wright type gameplay and doing Picross puzzles.
Yeah.
And if you don't like either of those, if it's one of those two things you don't like, don't buy this game. Because you're saying that you're not going to like one out of every two things you do. And that's not a good reason to buy a game.
Yeah. I start to have mixed. I think I had mixed feelings about Gears Tactics in the last round, but Immortals Phoenix Rising is just so subpar that it got on. So it's hard for me to champion or argue on behalf of Gears Tactics, because I think it's just the okayest. It really is just a Gearsy okay tactics game.
I mean, we can move it forward, but again, like back to the ramen burger, like I don't think a ramen burger can win best burger because it's too niche and it's not really like there's not enough people who want it. So it can't be the best burger because
Yes, it's also like a bit of a bandwagon fallacy. It's like I don't think I'd recommend Last of Us 2 to a single person, and it's because it's depressing. Like just because it's a really good game, I just wouldn't inflict that upon someone.
Well, I mean, this kind of, we can get into a whole thing of what makes the best game of the year and how do you quantify that? How do you really judge that? Because I think this is a conversation we've had where if you go back to the years, like especially in the 70s and 80s, and look at what won Best Picture and what was nominated for Best Picture, and then look at what movies people actually still talk about from those years, are vastly different in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Annie Hall beat Star Wars.
Yeah, and like, who fucking cares about Annie Hall anymore? Everyone, especially after that documentary that I know nothing about, but I've heard is pretty damning.
It's not great.
But like what's the one? Like The Year of Living Dangerously. Who talks about that movie ever?
Was that a winner?
Yeah. Linda Hunt won awards for that, and like,
then I must have seen
I love
it,
Linda Hunt. She's great, and I'm happy that she's making money on CSI, NCIS. But like, Year of Living Dangerously. Who talks about that? Who talks about Shakespeare in Love anymore? Anyone? Does anyone talk about that movie ever?
Fucking Argo.
Like the Argo, Crash, these movies. No one talks about these movies.
Some of these are actually bad movies.
And that's where like the concept of Game of the Year is such a weird one, because I'm sure we could go back and find back when there hasn't been something like the Academy nominating winning games for the same length and with the same standards and repeatability that we've had for in games. Oh yeah, that we do in like for the Oscars. But you could go back and look at what various people were saying was the best game of the year, and then look at what games people actually talk about from that year, and probably find a lot of games that people what was that again? You're talking about what now?
Yeah, I mean, on that notion, I don't know how much people will be talking about Gears Tactics in the future. I think it'll become essentially like Halo Wars. Like a second one will come out and then it'll die again forever, but it probably won't come out for 10 more years. Yeah, I don't know. I can't advocate for Gears Tactics in this case, and so if you don't feel at all strongly about Murder by Numbers, like,
you know what, then I will advocate for Murder by Numbers, if only because I think it succeeded at everything it sought out to do. I think it's just what it sought out to do is extremely niche and has a very limited amount of appeal for people in general. It's, again, a perfect game for me, and I loved it. But it's also like the perfect game for me and one other person that I know.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, I don't remember people talking about it other than you leading up to its launch. So, I mean, it's an indie darling. Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah.
Among Us was that until it exploded, right?
Yeah, I don't think this is gonna have that same mimetic appeal, but
it's not gonna be the next big YouTube sensation.
We'll move it on. I'm sure it has a great future for itself in this tournament. I mean, if you've been doing this at home, you can tell that it's definitely gonna make it through a bunch more rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Easy next round.
This is an all Andy round. XCOM Chimera Squad and Monster Train. It's gonna go to Monster Train because as much as I loved XCOM Chimera Squad that I'm remembering, I actively remember loving Monster Train throughout this entire year. Monster Train is a lot of fun, and I think it has had an impact on games at all.
Yeah,
More than
how
two
long ago
people
was
have
it
talked
that you
about
played
it. I played it in June.
Okay,
Was
yeah, it's
when we
definitely
talked
been a while.
about it. And I still remember, I still like it. I still jump back into it every once in a while. Not often, not as much as I do other games, but it's at the exact same level of Slay the Spire for me, where I will jump back into it and have a little fun with it. I have not touched Chimera Squad since I beat it, and I doubt that I will. I will go back and play XCOM 1 or 2 or some other tactics game again before I touch Chimera Squad. So that's an easy one for Monster Train for me there.
Wow, that's also a pretty big upset too. That was your number 1 seed taking down the number 10 overall, or getting taken down by the number 10 overall Monster Train.
Yeah,
the Cinderella story of the year.
I'm sure there's some way I could co-opt that Trump Train meme that was going around for a while to talk about Monster Train, but I don't really remember it well enough.
That is.
So, well, you're lucky. You've lived a blessed life. We got Desperados 3 and Crusader Kings 3.
Ooh, this is an interesting matchup.
Yeah, make your case.
Desperados 3 is a very good game that I also probably wouldn't recommend to that many people. It's a really hard sell. I really I have to sit somebody down and force them to watch me play a full mission and be like, do you get it now? Do you get it? And they probably still won't. But this game is just a beautiful symphony of things that occur, and it all comes together right at the end, where the map shows everything you've done throughout the course of this huge maps that they build. There's so few like truly satisfying games that you have to like iterate upon in like a short-term sense. I don't really know how to explain it. It's a game that you're going to fail at and have to go back to checkpoints constantly. But the checkpoints are set by you. You find a good stopping point. You do a quick save. It's one button press. And then you try something crazy, and a lot of times it doesn't work out, and it's hilarious. And sometimes it does work out, and then you're like, how the fuck did that work out? And your adrenaline's pumping, and you do another quick save, and you do that again about 100 times. That gameplay loop, again, not for everyone. It can be stressful. It can be taxing. I'm someone who likes Dark Souls, and I was playing this game on hard. So it was like extra challenging for me. Maybe normal's actually fairly reasonable and you only need a couple of save points or whatever. But it's a very unique game. None of the other games on this list are like it. I don't know if I've played another game in my life like it. Maybe that's also part of the appeal. Yeah, that pretty much covers it. Crusader Kings 3.
Some of what you're saying about Desperados 3 reminds me of the loop that you have in the Hitman games. Of like getting to a point of like, well, I'm just gonna see what happens if I shoot this guy. I think I can do this. I don't know. I'm gonna. No, that didn't work.
Yeah, so I've never played a Hitman game, so I can't confirm or deny. Maybe I would actually really enjoy those Hitman games.
Yeah, it has that same kind of loop. Crusader Kings 3 is such an interesting game because I tried to play Crusader Kings 2 and Crusader Kings 1 and other games like this, and they never worked for me. I never actually bought it. Like, I tried it and I was like, okay, I kind of get it, but also like, what the fuck is happening? What is all of these things you want me to do? It'd be a difficult one to recommend because I feel like you have to almost trick people to play it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like it's like a Beyond Burger. Like, you almost have to tell people don't tell people anything about it. Let them have a bite and then say like, did you know that's actually not meat? Because otherwise people are just going to go into it and look at that interface and be like, what the fuck am I looking at?
How long is the tutorial? 3 hours? What? No.
But if you can get them to do it, if you can get them to take that bite and judge it like a regular, and like, oh wow, this actually, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
This, with them ketchup and some barbecue sauce, this is a pretty good fake burger. But It's a tough sell. I think you'd be
Yeah,
very
both
hard
are.
pressed to get someone who didn't game at all to touch Crusader Kings.
Yeah, I I've also played Crusader Kings 3, and it really is the problem. Is like, look, if you sit down and invest 3 hours of your life to learning, like not just like going through tutorials. I'm talking about you're like learning dozens of systems. Like just sit there and absorb it all. It'll be the best time you ever spent because you're gonna lose 100 hours of your life immediately after. But yeah, it's very hard to sell to get anyone to sit down and actually do that.
And this is the easiest it's ever been to learn this game.
Yeah.
It's never been easier. It is infinitely easier now than it was in Crusader Kings 2, and it's still several hours of learning. And then like I was playing and chatting with someone at the time who was very familiar with these games. And so I was able to ask them like, "Hey, why can't I do this?" Like, "Oh, yeah, no, you can't do that until you do this." "Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not always clear why you can't do that."
Wasn't
But like,
covered in the 3 hour tutorial.
if I didn't have him to explain all this to me, I probably would have had even more time sitting and read. Like it went faster for me than normal, and it still took an assload of time. So I kind of think maybe Desperados takes this for that reason, that it is Crusader Kings 3 is so unapproachable, and it's the most approachable it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah, Desperados 3 really takes its time introducing mechanics. It's not a game that, that has that barrier to entry whatsoever. It just may not appeal to everyone. But also, yeah, Crusader Kings 3 has that problem as well. Even after 3 hours of tutorials, you may figure out, oh shit, this is definitely not my type of game.
Yep, and there are so many systems that don't even get covered in that tutorial because there are whole things that like they explain like, oh, you've got this and you've got this and here's how religion works and this and that, and then you go play. Oh yeah, you're a tribe. Oh, that's entirely different. We didn't even mention that. That's an entirely. It's not like you've just. It's not like in a Civ game where you switch from one version of a religion to another and it affects like two sliders.
Yeah.
Like it's an entirely different menu. It's an entirely different set of concepts.
Yeah.
Everything is different now.
You have to
when you're
change, like, you have to go through a tribunal to change any single thing about your religion or, like, how your society is built.
You're effectively playing an entirely different mini game within that game. It's insane how overly complicated it is. So much fun. If you can get it, if you hit it just right.
Yeah.
And if you let it hit you and you let it just like all the stupidness be there.
Or if you get away with an assassination or something, you're like, did
my
I really
God,
get away with it? Oh my God.
When you actually pull shit off in that game, when you somehow make it so that this huge empire is now being run by a 3-year-old, you get that moment of like, oh my God, look at what I did. And then you get that like, I can't think of a better term for it than like post-nut clarity of like, oh wait, that this nation being run by a 3-year-old doesn't actually have the effect that a nation being run by a 3-year-old should have. Because it's like you realize that it's all sliders behind the scenes. But millions of them. And like, oh, it doesn't actually really matter. Oh, I was able to capture his fucking brother. But it's actually just the same as having any other prisoner. Like this should turn the tide of battle, the fact that I've captured his wife and his brother, but it doesn't. He doesn't give a shit because they're not programmed to handle that any differently.
Yeah. No. War means war.
Yeah, it's so I think for those reasons, Desperados 3 needs to move forward.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there.
So now we have probably the hardest matchup we're going to have all day. Yakuza Like a Dragon and Murder by Numbers.
First of all, round of applause for Murder by Numbers making it to the final 4.
Right?
That is,
who would have guessed?
Yeah, that's fucking impressive.
Yeah. I think this is where Murder by Numbers triumphant upsets stop. I don't know what else I can say. I love it. But it's a game that was made for me and 2 other people.
I think Yakuza does have more broad appeal. And I know a lot of people that I've forced to either look at memes or watch videos of it or actually play the game. They've all enjoyed what they've seen or been interested in it. So Yeah, get fucked, Murder by Numbers.
Like a Dragon. Moving on to the final, or the final two. Nailed it. I know sports. And Monster Train and Desperados 3. Now, you've played both
games.
of these, so you're in a unique position to have opinions on both of them. I really love Monster Train. I think it's a great game. I know I'm going to be playing it in 2021. There's a good chance I'll be playing it in 2022 because I know I've been playing Slay the Spire for 3 years now. So,
I think my if that's the argument, I think my primary motivator for getting back into Desperados 3 will be to say that I've completed it. It's definitely not got the Monster Train replayability. It's not quite as addictive. Desperados is addictive in its own way, and it's like an extremely rewarding gameplay loop. And I draw Dark Souls comparisons sometimes to it, but only not because of the gameplay, but because of that feeling you get when you successfully get through an entire map or a specifically tricky area or something. That's when the game really shines and you get that adrenaline hit that's sort of like no other. But Monster Train ultimately, I think, is the more fun of the two. It's the more accessible of the two. If you like card games whatsoever, this is a fantastic game. Desperados 3, I don't think necessarily appeals to people who like stealth games or top-down games. So,
do you remember what it was you said about Monster Train last time before we recorded the last episode? I'm trying to remember what it was that you said. It was some comparison you made of at the beginning of playing, you look at X and you think, what the fuck are these? Get out of here. And then after you've played for like 100 hours, you're like, oh shit, those are actually the most important things. I get it now.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually absolutely true. It's like, it's sort of an organic learning experience and also an exercise in just appreciating game design. Like there's so much intelligence that went into building a game like Monster Train. And I mean, obviously both of them, but Monster Train's sort of this like, I use this to describe Desperado, so I don't want to say it, but it's like this beautiful symphony that like only starts to come together after you've listened to it 100 times.
Monster Train reminds me of those shitty clips you'd see from stuff like American Idol or America's Got Talent, where you've got some like dumpy looking dude who talks with a weird accent and has 2 teeth and everyone's laughing at him, and then he starts singing opera. Like, and everyone starts crying, and it, like, it's, you know, it's viral, and he goes on Gayle King live the next week. So
100%.
That's what Monster Train feels like to me, is like you look at it and you're like, nah, that's not gonna, and then the second it hits them, oh my god, it's so good.
I think I'm just doing my due diligence here and buying time because I think I agree that Monster Train is the better of the two games.
Okay.
There, so I've said it. I've said it.
We now move on.
I feel dirty, but I've said it.
A fascinating final game here with a number 10 and a number 1. Monster Train and Yakuza Like a Dragon. Again, you are uniquely seated to talk about both of these games.
This is actual what are your madness. Thoughts? This is actual madness, and I hate every bit of this. I don't remember being this conflicted last year.
No, nor do I.
The weird thing about this is both of these games came out quite a while ago. Yakuza in November, and I started playing it immediately. And Monster Train, you said you played it in June. Probably came out a little earlier than that or something.
Yep.
I played both of these in the last 2 weeks. Quite a ways after when I first started both of them, quite a ways after when they were released. They're both such good games. I don't even know where to begin. Andy, take it away. You figure this out for me.
I think that Monster Train being here, because last year our final was Outer Worlds and Control, which was our number 2 and number 3 seed in that bracket. And that means, again, number 3 and number 4 seed, really interesting that was our final matchup. But both really good games. And now that I've gone and I've played Control since then, I feel more confident that the decision we made back then was the right one. Control is just a better game. I loved Outer Worlds, but yeah, it's just a better game. I mean, Yakuza Like a Dragon would have to be really, really fucking fantastic for me to think that it's better. Monster Train has beaten out 4 games in my mind that are, it is, looking at my top 8, it's the best of all of them. As far as just an overall, I think it's a better game than Hades, just as far as the engagement, the level of strategy, the complexity of that strategy, the way that strategy dawns on you slowly over time, and the way that those combinations of characters and cards and upgrades in those cards, you make those clicking very much like Slay the Spire, in that, oh shit, they'll let me combine these 2 things, and that'll be horribly overpowered. I can't believe they're letting me do this.
Oh man, yeah.
And then you feel so smart and powerful, and then the game so effortlessly points out, like, yeah, but you forgot about this. You left that wide open there. You put everything here because you were so clever, and now look at this. Look at that. You just, that window right there. Right there. I can just go in right there and you're done. And, oh, this game is so much smarter than I am. This game, this little 3-toothed dumpy man on stage is so much smarter than I am.
Oh, Andy's wearing me down. Oh no.
And it has, because that package of it being a 3-toothed dumpy man is there the whole time, it's always disarming. It's always making me think that it's a little, like, there's that, like, oh, that just looks like a xenomorph. Come on, guys. What do you do? Did you put any effort into this? You put a lot of effort into this. Like, I get that that's just a xenomorph, and like, that's effectively poison from, like, Slay the Spire's poison mechanic.
Yeah.
But also
the frostbite.
Yeah, but also, yeah, I couldn't remember the right time. I was going to say ice, but yeah, frostbite. Like, that's just effectively poison. But also, it's so disarming how, I would almost bet that it was intentional. There's a part of me that would believe that it's meant to throw you off and make you feel stupid when it just proves how much smarter it is than you. Again,
I mean, in that regard, I think maybe too much praise, but I agree with everything you're saying.
Well, because I can't say anything about Like a Dragon, so all I can do is argue on Monster Train's behalf.
What I'm gonna have to do is reach deep down into my bowels and find everything I didn't like about both games, and then we'll have to maybe take it from there.
That's fair.
Monster Train recently, one of the things that sort of burnt me out on it is, if I fail a run, I'll typically change up my combination. You talked about it in the episode, but there's 5 different races, and basically you play as a primary race and then like a backup race, which has like different the cards from the other deck without having a champion from that deck. One of the I cannot figure out a way to get Umbra to work, which is one of the 5 races in higher circles. I forget what the covenant, they call it covenants. Every time you win, you can do a harder covenant. I think I'm on 19 or 20 right now, and I haven't been able to do a single Umbra one, and I've tried every possible combination multiple times because I keep thinking that there's got to be something that I'm too stupid to understand, because in this well-designed game that, like, clearly they must have put something in here that will work. And I keep trying it, and I keep hoping you'll get that, like, Slay the Spire moment where it's like, oh, I get it now. Like, I can do this combination. But I haven't been able to figure it out for an entire race in the game. So
that's very fair.
Some races are clearly much better than others. For a while, I was just like cheesing the cultivate strat with the awoken, which is like the plant girls.
Yep. Yep.
So you basically, like, you do this cultivate strat. You only need a short board, so you don't need to expand it that much, and then you're just sort of building up this one creature, and they have like multi-strike creatures. This is all inside baseball, but anyway, I basically just ran that train into the ground, and then I was like, this is too easy. Now I have to figure out how else I can play the game. So where the game sort of falls apart to me is in, like, I guess in the later challenges, especially because the early challenges, like, I didn't lose a run for like my first 3 or 4 runs, so I was on like Covenant 5 before I was finally starting to, hit a wall, or so to speak. So yeah, just for the sake of argument, I'm speaking about this.
Yeah.
Yakuza is very different in the sense that it doesn't feel well designed. It feels homage-y in a lot of ways. It's so over the top that you can't help but smile constantly by playing the game, but like they spent so much time making a fun and enjoyable experience that they didn't spend any time like really fine-tuning the game. A lot of money is spent in the cinematics and the animations, and it's a good-looking game, but it's not next-gen good-looking. They have an update for Series X that's been out for a while. I think the PS5 one just launched this week, and I don't think people are going to see that much of a difference because that's not what you go and play those games for. But it's stupid fun. I think part of you has to maybe enjoy Japanese culture, which I do. Probably have to enjoy some anime tropes, which they sort of come out in a lot of the characters. A lot of the characters are weak, although the main character is one of the best main characters in any game. So I probably gave it a little bit of slack there when I was originally talking about it. Yeah, I mean, I laid it all out there. I mean, yeah,
it's tough.
This is tough.
I love Monster Train. I think both of these games are a bit. They're not something that I could just give to my dad and have him enjoy, in the way that something like he could probably enjoy something like Flight Simulator or I don't know, nothing in our top 16. But maybe it's not very approachable. Neither of them are very approachable. There's kind of a lot of
they're both niche-y for sure. It's impossible to make it anything else.
Yeah, and I think they both come from very different angles. Like a Dragon is, from what you've described and everything I know about it, it is premier. It is top shelf. Everything that went into it is top shelf and makes a lot of sense and was well thought out and well designed and had a lot of effort and time and money put into it. And Monster Train kind of, and again, I feel like I describe it like this is two jackasses who made this game by accident. And I know that this is a team of people who worked hard on this game. I don't mean to denigrate it at all, but it almost feels like something that's a bit more homegrown, which it obviously is, and something that surprises you with how much you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Again, because of that, it's like a diner burger or something. Like you don't expect it to be the level of the amount of umami flavor and juices, everything out of it that you do. Whereas Like a Dragon is a much more a very fine meal that surprises you with how good it is.
Yeah. I will say, if I was gonna super simplify it, Monster Train is probably the better designed of the two games. But Yakuza is more of a complete package. I think that the people that built Monster Train are definitely sophisticated card enthusiasts. That being said, Yakuza also builds on 10, 11 games, slowly and iteratively and with great consideration over the course of, I think, 20 years at this point. So I guess that's probably a knock on Yakuza. It without its past, it wouldn't be as good as it is. Whereas Monster Train is sort of a bolt from the blue. This is getting interesting indeed.
Yeah,
That's what we got to do. We got to deep dive. Can't just hand it out, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like this is an unfair amount of pressure being put on you since you've played them both. That like it means that your vote is just a slight bit more. There's a slight bit more.
Well, then let's focus on, like, I don't know, what you... Does anything appeal to you about Yakuza? Maybe I can expand on that. Maybe it'll become more appealing to you. Maybe it will become less appealing to you, and that will, like, sort of equal out the vote here.
How much of the game is me not playing the game?
A lot of it. There are a lot of cutscenes and videos.
That is...
And typically I wouldn't like that either. And in a couple of the Yakuza games, I've skipped text in dialogue and stuff. But in Yakuza Like a Dragon, I did not do that. I thought it was the right. It found the right amount of like fun in every quest and all this different stuff. And it was charming and funny and all these different things. But you probably would want to skip more of them than me.
Yeah, I'm not super keen on stories in games anymore. Do we need them is the question that I'd ask. But no, but really, like, one of the things I love about games like Slay the Spire and Monster Train is how much of the time I spend playing that game is spent playing the game. And how it has a loop that works, and I spend all of my time doing that. So, you know, hearing that there's a lot of cutscenes and that you, someone who loves the game, skip over parts, really, it's the reason I never touched a Persona game. I haven't touched Fire Emblem Three Houses. It is for those reasons, because I know that that as good as they are, that would ruin it for me. For me, not as it being bad, just my experience. So that would knock Yakuza down for me. But you like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally I don't really. Like, I think Yakuza does it so well that even I'm sort of get on board.
Oh,
this Yakuza specifically.
When you phrase it that way,
this one.
When you phrase it that way, you're phrasing it as a boon, as a good thing.
Yeah, I guess that is interesting phrasing. I think it still wouldn't be enjoyable for someone who just doesn't like story at all. Like, I don't like visual novel games, period. I cannot sit through a visual novel game. In Dragon Quest XI, I'm really enjoying it, but I'm skipping any dialogue that doesn't pertain to the main story, because it's just inane nonsense. But I think part of it with Yakuza is that I'm more invested in the franchise than I was at the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
When I played Yakuza 6, I think that was the first one I ever played, and I love that game, but I skipped a lot of the side quests. And then I found myself doing that less over time, so that may say a lot in and of itself, because it has been an iterative experience for me. Yakuza, are you tarnished? Are you unredeemable? I don't know. Oh, it's too hard to say. I think. All right, let's get back to it. I think I like Yakuza better, but not enough to override your vote, which is definitely for Monster Train. I think I can go out. Me and Yakuza can go out back and, you know, shoot each other in the head together, die together in each other's arms, knowing that we did the most for each other. I'm okay with this fate.
Okay. I think that's the right way to go then. I think Monster Train works in a really special way. And I think a game like Monster Train in a year like 2020, in kind of the same way that other people who were wrong felt about Animal Crossing, I feel like Monster Train was something that just felt very 2020 and felt like it was just something that was good to have, and it worked for me. So I'm gonna say, and if you're willing to go out back and Old Yeller yourself and Like a Dragon together, I think
Old Yeller myself and Old Yeller.
I think that we can confidently put this, and with a hell of an upset, say that Monster Train is our game of the year.
This is fucking wild. I don't know how we got here.
No,
I cannot. I'm wondering how this would have gone if I didn't play Monster Train, because I think I would have been like, "There's no fucking way." Like,
I think the fact that you had played that helped a lot, because it's a really tough thing to imagine. Again, it's if you see that guy on screen and he's got the dumpy man with 3 teeth, you're like, "There's no way that guy sounds like Robert Plant. It's not possible. He doesn't." And you're like, no, just hold on, just listen. But like if you don't listen, if you don't take the time, no one's gonna buy it. And I know people who have not played Monster Train. They play Slay the Spire, they've not played Monster Train. It's just not. And I want, like, what are you doing? Like, just do it. Just try. Like, I know that there's this, like, idea of like, oh, there's the two games, and for a while there, like, some of the Slay the Spire streamers were switching over to Monster Train, and like some of them were holding strong. I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep slow. But like, just go play Monster Train. Try it.
Just play both.
Yeah,
too.
you can do both.
I mean, we have a lot of regret for not representing Slay the Spire last year because of a strange technicality, but yeah, these games deserve recognition for sure. Like, I'm not angry or disappointed that Yakuza lost, because a very, 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 very good game won.
Now, if you remember last year, we did state at the beginning of our bracket breakdown that this was to decide what game was the best other than Slay the Spire.
Other than Slay
the Spire.
Because we didn't officially rate it.
No, because it was obviously the best game of the year. And I feel almost better now that I'm remembering that, knowing that it was followed the following year by Monster Train. So I can only giggle at how excited I am to find out what roguelike deck building game 2021 is going to give us. That is just
absolutely sweet.
That's just going to take us away to a magic place.
Why was Monster Train so low on your list? It came in here at seed 10.
I don't know. It was number 5 on my list. That's the way that.
Oh, did I fuck up the seeding? Oh, that's probably my fault then.
Oh, no. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. Who cares? Even a seed 5 coming in and taking it. It's still great.
Yeah, it really is. What a great game.
It really is. And I know that there's more content coming out for it in future. I can't wait.
Oh shit! Yeah. Really? Tell me. About
it. That's all I know. I just know that that's the case.
Oh.
I know that that's the case. So.
Yeah. I think one thing I'll say too is that, like, in a lot of ways, I've enjoyed playing Monster Train more than Slay the Spire. I'm not gonna take a stand here. I'm not gonna say one's better than the other. But I find that, like, the fact that there's less variation within each race makes it a little bit easier. Like, there's still so much randomness, but it makes it a little bit easier to control your deck, which makes for a more fun experience, because, like, there's only a few different ways each race can go, whereas in Slay the Spire, you can build, like, 20 different decks, but you need to get really lucky for a lot of those decks to work.
Yeah, there's some of those setups that you look at, you're like, I don't know how many times you had to play. Watching streamers, like, how many times you had to play to get to the point where you were able to run that to the end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the extra amount of control in Monster Train makes the experience a lot more enjoyable. Whether it's a more satisfying for the hardcore audience or not, I don't really care. But it's a fun experience.
Well, all right.
It happened.
That is a fascinating end to this. I'm really happy we ended up here. Do you have any final thoughts on 2020 as a year for gaming?
Yeah, I love Yakuza 7 so much. I love it so much. Everyone should still play it, even though it's the first loser or the last loser. However you want to look at it. Just go play it. Watch a trailer, laugh, cry. Hang out with your mom and play. I don't know. Do whatever the fuck you do.
Whatever it is you weird people do.
Whatever it is you do. That being said, Monster Train is also on Game Pass for PC. That's how I started playing it, because it was free to me. So if you have that, just literally play that game for free. Also, incredible game. I'm curious if, like, non-card game loving people will enjoy it as much as we did. Like, obviously we both grew up playing Magic and God knows what else, Pokemon, etc., etc. So I hope more people get into this genre, because these games that they're making right now with Slay the Spire and Monster Train are so fun.
I'm so excited that this is now just a genre of games that people are talking about. It's great. I want to point out to you something that is going to make you, I would probably guess, generally upset. Monster Train has 10,822 reviews on Steam, and it is overwhelmingly positive. Yakuza has 5,837 reviews on Steam. Again,
twice as many people have played Monster
yes, but also overwhelmingly positive. Murder by Numbers is 474. That's not my point. Do you know what game has almost more reviews than Yakuza and Monster Train combined? XCOM fucking Chimera Squad.
Did all this shit talking about how no one was playing this game.
Like, how 15,000 people reviewed mostly positive. No one fucking talks about Chimera Squad. I've never seen a single GIF posted on Reddit. I've never seen a screenshot anywhere. I've never seen anyone reference this fucking game that wasn't in a conversation with me that I started.
You PC gamers and your ability to quickly launch games, you're just moving on to the next thing so fast. I don't know why that is. That's so weird.
It has almost as many reviews. It's at 15,555, almost as many as Yakuza and Monster Train combined.
Huh. Well,
I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to process that information. It's just so fucking weird.
It didn't make our top 4, so it can go fuck itself.
It didn't, and its open critic reviews are lower than both. Actually, lower than all three. Yeah. Lower than Murder by Numbers as well. So, fuck you, Chimera Squad. You're a great game.
It really is weird, because it came in at a really low price point. Decently reviewed, I thought, but it seems like the open critic may have gone down since.
79. 79's a good review.
That's not bad at all. Anything above 75 is very playable in my book. Strange. Well,
very weird.
Better luck next year. You bums.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I'm sure everyone out there has got a lot of ideas on how we fucked up our bracket and how wrong we were about everything in here. So
there's no way we made any friends or allies today.
So
absolutely.
If you've got ideas and you want to tell us about it, do that. Do that with going onto Twitter. And I'm frantically here trying to remember what our Twitter name is. And it's Game Off Podcast.
Game Off Podcast.
Yeah, that's really easy to remember. So you should remember it too, dear listener. Go on twitter.com/GameOffPodcast. No one phrases it that way. Just find us on Twitter. We're at Game Off Podcast. That's the way you do it. Tell us why we were wrong. Tell us why Monster Train isn't the greatest game of the year. You're wrong for saying it. We just proved it with science, but you just still,
so many facts coming at you.
Like, we got numbers. Where's your bracket, asshole? Tell us what you think. Give us a review on the podcast review portal of your choice, preferably iTunes, because it's the only one anyone fucking cares about. And we'll take a look at it. We'll read it or we won't. But we'll just know that it's out there, and we'll know it's out there, and that works, and it gets the algorithm juice flowing and everything.
Yeah, those likes and subscribes, they go a long way in keeping us making new videos, I guess. Videos? What do we do here? This is a YouTube channel, right? New podcast.
Yeah, that's it. New podcast is a YouTube channel. That is not how most of this works.
Yeah, I'm done talking now. I've been Brent Arcadia. I'm signing out here. Andy, take us away, please.
I've been Andy Solitalker. Thanks for joining us for another year of Game Off Podcast. We're looking at a good one coming up, so stick with us, and we'll give you some time.
Woo! 2021! Bye!